So before I start, just I wanted to show you how this will work. So we'll try to implement DoH and DoT. I am using Ubuntu software, Ubuntu operating system, and there are multiple ways how you can implement DoH and DoT. Like you can use the software Unbound, which has inbuilt support of DoH and DoT. Bind 9 doesn't have currently the support of DoH and DoT by default, but in next version 9.17, which is currently in development stage, there you will get this both the features. Now, third software is from Power DNS, which is DNS DIST, and DNS DIST is basically a load balancer, and but it supports all the DoH and DoT. It is a load balancer. It means that you can point this DNS dist to multiple recursive resolvers, and it will send queries depending on the weightage of the link. So some query it will send to suppose Google DNS resolver, some to Quad9, some to Cloudflare, and so on. So one more thing, I think you should know. This DoH and DoT, it encrypts the traffic, but it doesn't mean that your ISP will not know what you are surfing. So only your DNS queries are encrypted, but ultimately you will visit the site, and so either you will try to access it through IP address, and from IP address you can get to know with 95% accuracy what is the name of the website. Or otherwise also there is a field in your HTTP which is SNI, server name indication, in which the name of the server will be given. So it means that even if you are using DoH and DoT, maybe someone, so people will not know what is the DNS query, but when you surf the website or when you are trying to connect to that website, your ISP will definitely know what you are surfing. So that is important thing. So if you want really absolute privacy, either use a VPN located in some other country or use Tor. Okay, so let me start by sharing my PPT first. So this so I will be using DNS DIST for this demonstration. So DNS DIST acts as a proxy. Basically, it's a load balancer, but in this case, it acts as a proxy. So any client will issue its query to the DNS DIST, and then DNS DIST will connect to resolver, a recursive resolver, which in turn resolve the query. So like a client will go to DNS DIST, IP for cdac.in, then DNS DIST will connect to the recursive resolver, and then recursive resolver will follow its own mechanism to get the IP address, which will be finally passed on to the client. Okay, so this is the flow. So DNS DIST is in between, and green means secure, and all other part is insecure. So only the connection from the client to DNS DIST is secure. Rest all part wherever the query is going is insecure. So it is in plain text. Now I will directly go to the Ubuntu server. Okay, so like yesterday, first I will show you that I do not have any DNS server running on my own system. So just run this nslookup sub www.cdac.in localhost, and it will return there. So no servers could be reached. Now next step is I will first install bind because DNS dist is just a load balancer. It ultimately requires some recursive resolver. So either I can create my own recursive resolver, or I can specify any public public resolver like Google's 8.8.8.8. So I will prefer my own. So I will install resolver. Okay. Now next step, I will install the DNS dist package. So apt install DNS dist. So then first I will check my recursive resolver if it is working fine. So www.cdat.in and localhost. So it is working fine, all good. After that, we have to basically configure DNS dist. So for that, let us go to the configuration file for DNS dist is located in /etc dnsdist/dnsdist.conf. Okay. Now, DNS dist configuration file, if you can see here, it writes that DNS dist configuration file and example can be found in this location. So you can go to this location and there is a sample dnsdist.conf using which you can copy it here and modify it as per your requirement. But I will avoid that for now and I will start my own configuration. So my first point is that this DNS dist, it's a service. So I will specify a port for it to run. So by default, it runs on 53 port. But we all know that even bind is also running on the same 53 port. So there is a conflict. So that's why I will run it on a different port, 5300. You can use any port. After that, I will add ACL. So what is ACL? So ACL is basically who all can access. So yesterday also we saw allow query was one in bind. Allow query was one option where we can specify which network can query the DNS server. So similarly here it is add ACL where I can specify who can query. So if I want everyone to be able to query me, I will put 0.0.0.0/0. It means that any IP address, any user belonging to any IP address can query me. So these two steps. Next. So next step is this DNS dist. It's a load balancer. It requires a recursive resolver to resolve the queries. So I will add a recursive resolver through new server, and here I will put my local resolver. So this 127.0.0.1. Of course, you can add more servers. So like new server, and suppose I want to add Google's, so I can do that also, no problem. Okay, so next is I have to add a TLS server because I want to configure both DOT and a DOS server. So I will add a TLS server. Now TLS server will run on 0.0.0.0, and then there are two things we will be doing in a minute, two parameters more. And similarly, I will add a DOH server. So add a DOH local, sorry. So add DOH local. And in this, basically, there will be 4 parameters, 0.0.0, colon 443. I'm specifying it will run on which port. Then there are two important parameters which skip for now. And then finally, the so this is basically endpoint where the query will go. So like it will go to www.cdac.in/DNS query. So my request will go to cdac.in/DNS query. Or otherwise, if I do not give anything, so the query will directly go to www.cdac.in. Okay. So this is the endpoint which I have to specify where query will go after the domain name. The most important part is that for DoH and TLS to function, basically we require a public key, private key, private key and a public key certificate for it to function, because it will use encryption decryption mechanism. For that we require that. So first, in the meanwhile, I will save this Control X, and we'll go to OPT directory and create a public key private key certificate. So for that, I will use OpenSSL request -x509. So I'm trying to create a 509 certificate, and the private key, when we generate a private key and public key certificate, then we want the private key to be protected using password. So I'm saying that I do not require that. So I'm writing no DES. So it's a encryption mechanism. So do not encrypt the private key. So no DES -days. So it is the validity. So my certificate will be valid for 365 days. Then I want to generate a new key. And what will be my key? RSA key with key size 2048 bit. Okay. And next, I want to say -out, which is output the certificate. So I will give the name of the certificate, suppose DoH public.pem. And then I will also output the key out DoH private.pem. So this is the command. I will repeat again. OpenSSL request -x509 is the certificate format. -no DES means do not use DES for encryption of the private key. -days 365, so it will be valid for 365. -new key, it will generate a new key which will be RSA 2048 bit. Then I'm writing -out DoH pub.pem. So I'm saving the certificate into this file DoH pub.pem, and I am saving the key in DoH private.pem. So I have added public and private just to differentiate between the public and private key. Remember, the extensions doesn't matter. So like I could have written DoH public.crt for certificate, or I could have written DoH private.key for the key file, but it doesn't matter. No. So it says that generating a RSA public private key, and it is writing the private key to DoH private.pem, and then it will ask for some information for the certificate. So like country name, India, Karnataka, then Bangalore, suppose CDAC, CSG, common name. So usually this will be the FQDN, means whatever your server's fully qualified domain name is there. So like if your server name is doh.example.com, so you should write here doh.example.com. So let me put doh.cdac, and email address for the administrator. I may not have an email address, but I can put some fake email address for now. Remember, so if you, this is a self-signed certificate. So I have generated a self-signed certificate and private key, but if you are deploying it in a public environment, you can of course get a free certificate and key from Let Us Encrypt or Zero SSL. So there are many service providers which give you TLS certificate for free, though it is only valid for 3 months. Okay, so I have used self-signed certificate for this demo purpose. Then I will change the permission of this files so that it is accessible through DNS DIST. Now let us go back to our DNS DIST configuration. So I will open it using Nano. And here for this TLS local, I will add the certificate. So /opt/doh public.pem, and second will be /opt/doh private.pem. Okay. Same thing for this also, for DOH also /opt/doh private.pem and /opt/doh public.pem. So this is the configuration. Save it, exit, and restart the DNS dist. So systemctl restart DNS dist, and done. By the way, if you remember yesterday, for bind9 we had a function named checkpoint for checking whether the configuration is right or not. Here also we have a function DNS dist space -- check config. So I can run and it will, like it is saying, configuration is okay. So if there is any error, you will know the error. Okay. So my the thing is that my DNS DOH and DOT is running. So how do I verify that? So let us first check if the ports are open. So ss-telpin grep listen. So we'll go up. So you can see 853, this port is being listened. So that is our DOT. So 853 port, as Champika was saying, that is for DOT. And then here you can see 443 for this. It is by same DNS dist and it is for our DOH. So the ports are open and the application is listening on it. Now next part is, how do I verify whether it is working fine? So for that, I can use two methods. So first method is curl -doh URL, and then I will give the URL. So I will put doh.cdac because this is my host name. Yeah, I'll just show you. So doh.cdac is my host name. So I will use same thing. So curl -doh URL and https://doh.cdac, and then whatever website I want to access. So suppose that I want to access https://www.cdac.in. So if I press enter, it will say that it could not resolve the host name. So why does it say? So for that, we'll put a verbose mode to see what is the error. And now you can see clearly that SSL certificate problem, self-signed certificate. Okay, so if it were a genuine certificate, so suppose I will give an example of dns.google. So dns.google/dns-query. So it's a genuine DOH URL and it has a genuine certificate. So if I go through this, it will return me the website. this website open. So I got the website content. But for us, we had used a self-signed certificate, so that's why it gave me the error. So what I will do is, there is another flag -DOH -insecure. So I'm saying that even if the DOH is insecure, still give me the website. So it will ignore the certificate, even if it is self-signed, and then give me the website. And you can see that this time it gave me the content of the website. Done. So this is one method of knowing whether your DOH is working proper or not. Now, second method is, one tool is there which is called DNS lookup. So let me install this tool. So snap install. Remember, I'm not using apt. It is in snap library, so I'm using snap. So snap install DNS lookup. So it has installed DNS lookup. Again, I will try DNS lookup, and then what do I want to look up? So www.cdac.in, and from where I want to look up? So https://doh.local. Sorry, dos.cdac. Okay, fine. So it gave me again, it gave me error because of the certificate issue. So again, the certificate is self-signed, so that's why it gave me an error. To overcome this, what I will do is I will add verify equal to 0 in the command. So if I add verify equal to 0, so it will not inspect the TLS certificate. And now you can see that it says TLS verification has been disabled, and then it gives me the response. Now same thing I can do with, so here I used HTTPS. Okay, now same thing I can do for TLS. So instead of HTTPS, I will use the TLS. So TLS:/dos.cdac, and I will change it to suppose PKI India. And you can see still it gave me the response with after disabling the TLS verification. So this is all good. There is one small thing, /etc/DNS DIST/DNS dist.com. So I just wanted to add, I can add a web server here so that we can see the parameters on the GUI. So I will add a web server 127.0.0.1 : suppose 8080 port. I will run it, and for that website I will add a password which will be password itself. So how do I access that? So let us save this, exit, restart the DNS dist. And now if I go to the website and I will run it here, localhost:8080. And it is asking for username, password. Username, I can put anything. So like XYZ. Only thing is password should be same what was entered in the password. Don't save. Now you can see that it has two servers. One is the local host and another one is the 8.8.8. And as soon as I will start querying, this count will increase. So let me go to the so suppose I am reissuing this query, and again I will reissue the query for HTTPS. So I issued two queries, and you can see that it has sent two queries to this localhost. So similarly, if I keep sending queries, some query it will send to this, some query it will send to the other. So basically, it's a load balancer. Okay. Now, next part is that, fine, that was the DNS server configuration for a DOH and DoT. next part is how can we configure the client. So suppose that this is my this is my client where client means Firefox browser. So where I want to configure DOH. So I will go to settings, and in the settings at the bottom there is a network settings. So click on settings, and then at the bottom it is there enable DNS over HTTPS. So I will click on this. Now by default Cloudflare will be selected. So Cloudflare also provides their DOH service, but you can use any. So like if you click on custom, it will give you an option to use a custom DOH. So either you can add our own like DOH.CDAC, which will not work, of course, because of the self-signed certificate, or otherwise whatever known. So suppose I trust Google, so I will add dns.google/DNS-query, and then I will click on OK. And if I visit a website, fb.com, so it will resolve using that DOH. If you don't want to use DOH, then again go back here, disable it. Okay, done. Okay, so that's all. We saw how we can configure DoH and DoT using DNS DIST, which is provided by Power DNS. And there are in bind, the support will be from 9.17. In unbound, the support is already there, and you can start working with unbound. And the DNS DIST configuration, for that, for DoH and DoT, we require a public key, private key certificate. So both combination I generated for this demo purpose using self-signed mechanism, but in practically when you are setting up your own DoH server, then you should use any valid certificate, TLS certificate, either from any of the CA, or for free you can get it from Letters Encrypt, 0SSL, like that websites. And there is very minimal configuration. I will just show you again. So first part was the listening port for DNS DIST. Second part was who is allowed to have to query this server. Then these are the servers where queries will be sent. These are the recursive resolvers. You require minimum one. You do not require 2, 3. Then TLS local you can add, and of course you have to provide the public key, private key. Similarly, you can add DOH local, which requires 4 parameters: port, public key, private key, and the endpoint where the queries will go. So if you noticed, by default, usually everybody uses domain/DNS-query. So if I write here DNS-query, so my server will also use this endpoint, or otherwise I can leave it to directly. If I am only running my this DOH, so I do not require /something. And last part is that yeah, even Nginx supports this DOH, so you can use Nginx in conjunction with bind, and then you can run your own DOH server. Okay, so that's all from my side on how to set up a DOH and DoT resolver. Any questions? Okay, so one question is local and new server. So local is basically the port and IP address for the DNS DIST, where DNS DIST is listening. It is also a service, so it requires a, some port and IP address. So I can put any IP address, either IP address of the system, so that it will listen only on that port. If you remember yesterday's class, there was one thing, listen on. So listen on, and I specified IP, then it will only listen on that IP. If I write 0.0.0.0, so if I have multiple IPs on my system, so it can listen on any of the IPs of my system. Okay, and new server, that is the recursive resolver. So if I will go back to my presentation. So this, if you can see this DNS DIST, this is the local, and this recursive resolver is the server. So I can add more recursive resolver here. So that will be one more new server. I can add more, that will be another new server. So like that. So this is add local, and these are the new servers, which are the recursive resolvers.